In this video, I'm going to be creating my most detailed digital painting to date. This is an Australian desert gorge, and it was drawn in Adobe Photoshop. Welcome to the Sketch Zone. Let's get into it. Welcome to the studio. My name's Andrew. This is the place where we talk about all things to do with traditional oil painting, and in this special series, I'm sharing with you some of my digital art. So welcome, and I hope after today's video, I have earned your subscription. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk to you all about how I created this design of Kalamina Gorge in Karijini National Park. It's one of the most intricate paintings that I've done to date, and it's going to be a massive painting if the commission goes ahead, but this is really a design for a commissioned project. But before we get stuck into it, because a lot of people ask, here's what I'm using. I've got a Wacom tablet. This is an Intuos Pro 2. It comes with a stylus and a whole bunch of different nibs. I really haven't had to swap out the nibs very much. I tend to have just used the one. And I'm also running Adobe Photoshop through the Creative Cloud. And I'm running this all on an iMac 27-inch. All right, without further ado, let's get stuck into it and create this painting. I'm working on a burnt sienna ground, very similar to what I'd be working on if this was an actual oil painting. And this tone is very reminiscent of that burnt sienna rubbed back, leaving a very nice light red. I thought this would be perfect for this type of scene. So I begin sketching up my overall scene, working with that linear perspective, and you'll notice that I've got a pretty strong vanishing point over on the left-hand side. This is for the cliff wall on the right. Similarly, I've got a separate vanishing point for the left-hand cliff somewhere along that horizon. But the horizon here is absolutely crucial in getting this perspective as close to accurate as possible. Now, the one thing that helps me with this perspective, even though these aren't buildings, they're quite organic forms and shapes, is that horizontal nature to the sedimentary layers here at Karijini National Park. That's one thing that really sets Karijini apart and gives it its character, is just those beautiful horizontal layers of strata. It creates such an engaging and unique scene, but really forces and drives the viewer into the composition. So the idea here is pretty simple. We're standing in the shade along a cliff wall here on the left-hand edge of the composition, just staring into the distance here, but we really feel like we're being driven and pulled into the scene through that intense use of perspective. Now, I start the digital painting the same way I would a regular painting, just working in terms of depth and whatever's furthest away, just bringing the scene forward and isolating each section of this digital painting in terms of layers. That's one thing I've found about working in Photoshop, and something that I enjoy so much is working in layers and allowing this painting to be separated into chunks and manageable pieces. Now, when I'm happy with a particular set of layers, I might merge them. I did this with my initial construction drawing, but I like to keep things more or less separated from sky to background, then midground, then foreground. And having those major sections can really help when it comes to creating depth within the scene. But also, if I had to go back and apply something like a digital glaze afterwards, and yes, you can glaze a digital painting. You just work with very transparent layers of color. Now, one thing that's really important about this scene, because there's going to be an abundance of this red rock, I wanted an intense green down in the bottom of the gorge to balance out that red. It's important to have something for the eye to move towards. So not only do we have this perspective, but we have that little green jewel sitting in the bottom of the canyon, and we feel drawn to it. There's this abundance, almost monotony of red rock all the way around. So having just a little spot of intense green can really help balance that out. And again, a bit of color theory here, but red and green are complementary opposites. And so I'm working complementary opposites even in the design phase. I'll work my blue and orange, my red, green, and sometimes even my yellow, violet. When it comes to light in particular, that yellow-violet combination is pretty interesting how it could create a much more dynamic scene overall. So you'll notice I'll add a little bit of violet to some of my deeper shadows. Now, it took me a little while, but I had to work out some sort of system for drawing these rocks. And what I worked out was that there was 4 major sections to any one of these rocks. Even though they seemed to be pretty random shapes, I was just going one brick at a time and treating it as just a simple geometric form. So we've got a shadow portion to the rock, and then a section that's obviously catching the sunlight. And then we've got a sharp edge along the top of that rock, and then a corresponding deep crevice between our layers of strata. So there's 4 different colors there. And what I'd do is I'd pick a color from that right-hand cube on the screen and then work my way across section by section, but more or less using the same color in a pass in one given section. So once I worked out that system, it became a little bit easier to chew through this drawing. And this thing took me days. I think it was about 4 days all up, drawing here on the Wacom tablet. So the process here, as you've seen, is starting with that initial construction drawing. That's absolutely crucial. If I didn't have that, then I wouldn't have much of a digital painting here. Now I can manipulate and move and change anything at any time, but I really like to have that solid foundation to be able to hang the details and the colors off of. If I didn't have that, it would just be a bunch of guesswork, and I might end up lost and just kind of spinning my tires throughout the whole painting process. I really like to know what I'm doing, just piece by piece, and that builds confidence into such a project. Again, with the amount of time that it takes to produce one of these things, I really need to know that it's going to turn into a solid painting with correct perspective. So having those vanishing points also really helps me to get everything aligned correctly with that horizon line. I really enjoyed the digital painting process, but this has been extraordinary, almost revolutionary from a business standpoint. Again, being a traditional guy, I never anticipated how this would help me produce something that could help illustrate what a potential project could look like when I delivered it to a client. So I use this a lot in the commission approval process. I submit designs to clients for potential commissioned work, and this helps them to see what the painting could look like. It's far better doing this and taking a few days to really give this my all, rather than producing the painting and then just hoping that they like it. I like to know that I've got something that is a solid idea, and at least it's going to be something that will fit their needs. I really want to go all out and produce the best service that I can for my clients who buy my work. So having this here and showing them, hey, your painting could look like this, then from here, I'm more than willing to make changes or adjustments to the overall composition if there was something that they wanted changed. And it's only digital, so those changes could be made almost immediately. Now, incidentally, the full version of this video that you're watching is available right now on my Patreon page. I recently shared this and some of the references that I drew this from. And you'd be surprised, the reference material is pretty different to what you're seeing here. In addition to extended videos, I've got painting tutorials, some drawing tutorials, I've got Q&As and critique videos. There's all kinds of exclusive content that you're not going to see anywhere else. And there's also an exclusive community there to join as well. Make 2023 the year that you go all in on your art and you really level up, taking your skills even further than you thought possible. So click that link in the description down below, and I'll see you there. Now, to draw this water down here in the foreground, I first start off with the base layer. I want some really nice reflective cool water down here, so I need to sort out whatever's going on below the reflection first. And this is really a series of muddy green colors. One of the things I found when I was recreating this scene was just how dirty some of those colors appeared, but when they appear adjacent to one another, they don't seem quite as muddy. It's quite interesting what happens here. But as soon as I lay some of that cool color over the top, whether it's a nice violet note that's just sitting on top of those rocks, or a bit of glaze in the background as I was describing, it suddenly helps those color relationships come to life. Now, one of the things about working digitally, again, is having those layers You could create so much dimension with your colors here by just adding very thin layers of digital paint. I can't help but think about it in terms of paint as if I was mixing medium in with actual color. And the only way to do this digitally is to adjust the opacity of the mark or adjust the opacity of the layer. So here with some of the reflection in the foreground, this was crucial. I pick up a little bit of blue, very reminiscent of ultramarine, slightly on the violet side, and then turn that opacity right down. And with a nice big brush, I can lay in some of those ripples moving back and forth, and then even remove some of this selectively by using a soft-edged eraser and cut back in so it reveals a bit more of that color coming through from underneath. And I add a few little white notes on the water just to give it a little bit of a sparkle, and some Spinifex grass. Just the final little touches of garnish here in the foreground. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this video and you've come away with something to think about. Again, I'm a traditional guy. I like painting with paintbrushes and drawing with pencils, and so this still is very new and very fresh for me. So I'm approaching it as a traditional artist, and I'm really enjoying what the digital medium can give me as a traditional artist when it comes to creating really detailed designs for paintings. But these are still cool images in their own right, and I'm certainly really enjoying what I'm doing here at the Wacom tablet. Now, I've got a few more of these videos coming your way in this series called Sketch Zone, so I really hope you're enjoying them, and I hope after you've seen this video, if you're new here, I have earned your subscription. So please check out some more videos on my channel. You'll see some traditional painting videos here, as well as sketch videos in my series Sketch Endeavor. I'm gonna get out of here, get back to the drawing board or the easel. I've really enjoyed your company, and I'll see you again in the next video.